All right, speaking about suckering these, this would be the determinate type tomatoes. So this is a different sucker system than the indeterminates. The indeterminates, we take all the suckers off except for 1 leader. But for these here, these are a bush type, and so we're gonna let these sucker out and create a bush, and they're gonna have a determined height. That's how they get their name. They have, they're genetically determined to be, you know, 5 or 6 foot tall when they're finished. Typically, you know, you can grow them otherwise a little bit, but they don't prefer to grow like a vine like the Big Dinas and some of the other indeterminate varieties will, or cherries and etc. So for these guys here, as you can see, there's a lot of sucker. All those paler color leaves, or brighter green, or whatever you want to call it, I guess they're a little bit more of a bright green color. Those are all suckers coming out of the bottom there, and they need to be cleaned off. What I'm going to do, typically on a typical tomato plant, your first flower set you can see right there in the middle of the screen. Typically the sucker right below that flower set is the strongest first sucker of the plant. The plant puts a lot of energy into that sucker right below the flower set. So as you can see here, the size of that guy right here, this guy right here, compared to if you jump right below him or even right behind him, let me turn the plant here a little bit. You know, just in comparison, it's a much spindlier sucker there. But what we're gonna do here is basically take off all the suckers below that guy. So let me clean these guys off here quick. It's probably about 8 or 9 of them here. And they snap off fairly easy, and I like to get to them sooner than this, but just like everything this year so far, just a step behind it seems like. So when I'm done, I'll just kind of lay him down. We're going to be standing these guys up later here. So I cleaned off all of the suckers from the bottom all the way down here at the bottom. And don't forget these guys here on the bottom. A lot of guys want to forget them, and they end up growing out along the ground, and you find them later on and it's like, whoa, where did he come from? But a lot of guys forget them little ones at the bottom. But everything that's not a leaflet, the leaflets we leave on, they are what capture the sunlight and provide photosynthesis for the plant and sugar and food for making our fruit. So we want to let them on, at least for now. Later on, we'll take them off once their job is over later on and they're way underneath the canopy and their job's over. We'll probably eliminate some of them for air movement. But for now, there's no reason to take them off. But we do want to take these suckers off because the plant will put energy into those suckers that we want to go into our fruit set and up top. So now on this here, this plant is pretty much done. I'm not going to sucker this plant anymore unless I decide later I need a, you know, correct course on something, or there's a sucker that's going the wrong direction that I don't like or something like that. I could take it off. But in general, I take off all the bottom suckers, and then we're going to have a leader here, and we're going to have a second main leader, and these guys are all going to branch out and create essentially 2 bushes, which are going to look like 1 bush. But and as you see, like up here, there's more suckers, and the suckers are going to have suckers, and it's going to create a bush. That's, we're going to let that alone like that. So these guys in here are spaced roughly about 18 inches to 24 inches. I didn't measure it exactly, but in that neighborhood. So they're a little tighter than we would be in the field, but I am going to push them to grow tall and to put on a lot of yield, and so and so forth. But that is the suckering process for a bush type. Want to let that 1 sucker on below the fruit and the rest come off, and then that guy's done. So these are nice in the sense that we don't need to tend them every week like we are the indeterminates. So they're a little easier in that way, but I can't get quite as many plants in here. I only have about 1,000 plants per house with this type, where I can be you know, close to 400 more plants of the indeterminate variety. That's why we do it that way. Get a little bit more production out of the extra plants. And it's just a different system. It's not necessarily one right or one wrong. I think we can keep a little better disease control in indeterminates. These bush type tend to want to, you know, hide moisture in under the leaves, and they tend to want, you know, it's harder to keep air movement in these houses. And so all of that just creates some challenges that the indeterminates, as long as you keep them all suckered off, are a little better at. So, all right, I'll keep on. I'll catch you later here in a minute.